Leave me alone. Uh-oh. No. Well, that is quite a predicament. Also, hi. It's been a long time since my last video. It's well caused by 1. Having a real-life job that took away time from YouTube, and 2. I was working on this. However, after more than a year had passed, I just had to go back and create more content. Oh, one sec. I gotta take this. Hello? A challenge? Yeah, sure, I'm down. What does it entail? Making a car? How? Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So I designed this and you do the rest. Sure, why not? Alright, cheers. So, someone just challenged me to make an MPV from the 2000s, and it has to be fast, while remain compliant towards applicable emission regulations, and should sell like hotcakes. Well, it's time to go to automation. I'll take the year 2003, and for now it's called family-friendly car. As for the target demographics, I'll take the MPV market, so I can know whether this car will do well in its intended demographic later on. For the body, I chose this boxy-looking minivan, as I figure an MPV would need to be able to carry at least 7 passengers. And steel for both panels and chassis materials because of economic reasons. Now, usually, when I do this, I do the spoiler first, so I could get the downforce related options available down the line. All I'm making here is your typical people mover, like the Suzuki APV for example. That means I gotta go with one of the all-wheel drive variants. Guess I'll go for the cheapest one. It also must comply with the applicable emission regulations, meaning I cannot go all in on speed and power. A shame, but it is what it is. And while we're tuning the engine, I'd like to give you a look into the emissions regulations. For anyone wondering, honestly including myself, on what gave birth to this seemingly restrictive, annoying set of rules, let me take you back in time, specifically to the 40s. Following the end of the Second World War, the United States went through a massive explosion in population. This phenomenon was best observed in the town of Los Angeles. The thing is, this is also the part in time when cars became more affordable. I think you're starting to see the picture. More people are coming in, cars becoming more affordable, meaning more people can buy cars, resulting in, you guessed it, more cars on the road. While this is most likely good news for us car-loving folks, there's something else that's lurking in the shadows. Something else that everyone was not privy enough to look. In October 1948, precisely, in the small town of Donora, Pennsylvania, a combination of smoke and fog, aka smog, choked the town's skies. 4,470 people suffered from mild to moderate symptoms, while another 1,440 people fell to serious illnesses. 20 people became a statistic. Well, while this is not the county of LA, and the main cause of this smog was not cars, but rather intense pollution from American Steel and Wire Plant and the Donora Zinc Works, this case is still relevant to our story today. Why? It's because in this time frame, a similar incident was brewing in LA. From the naked eye, it looks just like the smog that turned thousands in Donora sick. Its compositions and effects, however, were different. The LA smog caused eye irritation, was stinky as hell, and corrosive towards rubber, meaning car tires are also being harmed here. So, as the smog was harmful, stinky, and is probably a cause of so many destructions of properties, the scientists got to it. Among them, a certain Dr. Arje Jan Hagen Smith had managed to characterize common conditions which occurred during the smog, as well as estimations towards the quantity of air pollutants within the smog. Now, he found that those numbers are possible within LA, especially from the amount of cars roaming around the county's roads. In 1954, the Los Angeles County Air Pollution Control District figured that the gasoline consumption in LA itself was roughly 4.5 million gallons per day, which had resulted in 850 tons of hydrocarbon emissions. By the way, hydrocarbon is that HC over there that you'll see if you open the emissions tab. Now apparently, these figures make up for roughly half of air pollutants which was causing the smog problem to occur in the first place. In other words, remember our logical train of thought where more people with cars result with more cars on the road? Yes, having so many cars on the road was half why the county of LA was suffering from smog. In fact, the smog problem became more and more apparent as the numbers of cars in California kept rising. In 1955, it had become so bad, the smog problem was recognized as a statewide problem. Therefore, by the 1960s, the Department of Public Health developed California's first air quality and vehicle emission standards. And then the rest of the world followed, making emissions regulations a worldwide thing. In automation, I think they took notes from the European emission standards for two reasons. One, they measured the emission levels with three pollutants: hydrocarbon, nitrogen oxides, and carbon monoxide, similar to the European emission standard, which recognizes and regulates those pollutants plus particulate matter. 2. They measure emission levels in world emission standard levels, with WES1 being the most lenient and WES11 being the strictest, just like how the European emission standards define their emission limits from Euro 1 to 7. And right now, the car is in world emission standard level 7. What we want is level 9, as they're the toughest restriction available for the year. How are we going to achieve that? I don't know. Honestly, I just messed with the sliders until the bars on that table go green. Apparently, increasing the stoichiometric operation value worked. It didn't do much to reduce nitrogen oxide emissions, but it did enough to handle hydrocarbon and carbon monoxide. But we need all three measurements to reach level 9. So, I bashed more sliders until I found that changing into CVVL reduced emissions by a significant margin. Might have caused the costs to go up, but once I decided the lower end, the headlight shape kind of came into me on its own. I decided to be a bit funky on the turning indicators and made them the way they are, under the headlights. As for the grille piece in between, I suppose I was thinking of a Mazda 3 when I plugged that in. The hood looks too plain for my liking. I figured to give it a sporty look with a subtle air scoop. Let's go with this for the taillight. This headlight shape could also be repurposed to fill the taillights, and I forget to put space for indicators. And before I forget, I'll give it a proper shade of the objectively best color in the world. And now, for the most painful part in this entire process, the interior. I remember the good trick for this is making the tunnel size small, so you have an easier time in applying the interior floor. It does say 90s dashboards, but it still looks relatively the same as the 2000s ones. And that's it! The familial V6, complete with an in-house design engine, the V629N, codenamed Family. It got all-wheel drive, 2.9-liter V6 with cast iron, runs on regular gasoline and produces 259 horsepower, while remaining compliant to emission regulations for the time. I also opted for standard interiors because of reliability reasons. And with that note, at last, the street Familia V6 was ready for the road. Okay, first impressions of the car. It's very steering. Also, since it's a completely manual car, every time I shift this thing up, it deteriorates. See? Not even a full lap and I already get 2% of synchronizer damage. Flat out. No braking, no nothing. There we go. Easy. Almost shoot it. No! Whew. That was close. As you can see, I was happily testing out my newly created car. Sure, it suffers from major understeer, but from an MPV, I'll say it's to be expected. Normally, you would follow traffic laws driving one of these, and while it can be used for high-spirited driving, there's bound to be some inherent limits. Hello? Oh, my next challenge? Right, you mentioned the MPV had to be fast. What's up with that? Oh, alright. So apparently, the next part of this challenge is to win a time trial here, in this very track, against the Soliat Lansdale. But not just any old Lansdale, the high-performance trim of the reliable family mover. While under the hood, it rocks a 3.8-liter V6. It boasts 217 horsepower, comes equipped with actual sports tires and sports-grade suspensions. My thoughts? This will handle better than my Familial, which will make things interesting, seeing how the venue is a track dominated with hairpins and corners. But If you think that alone will make me back off from a challenge, think again. Well, for starters, the Lansdale only comes in automatic. Sure, it handles better than the Familial, however on the straights, I felt the difference in power. Down the first hairpin, pretty sure the minivan went too wide, and the automatic gearbox was not helping much in managing the Lansdale's power through the carousel. On the shortcut, I had more confidence in braving the corners, but once again, the blue Soliat was momentarily stalled as the gearbox took its sweet time in changing gears. And of course, it happened again on the last couple of corners. Despite that, it still recorded a solid lap time of 1 minute and 26 seconds. Well, sure it didn't bring home any stars, but that's because you're not supposed to take on that challenge with minivans, I think. Anyways, now it's the Familial's turn. Right off the bat, it was raring to go. I remembered to hold the upshift button down for a bit to avoid synchronizer damage, and I felt I was somewhat faster on the first bend thanks to the creation's power. From the speed I gathered from the left wall bend, I glid down towards the hairpin, in where I utilized the entirety of the track's width to compensate for the Familial's monstrous turning radius. After barely staying at the track's limits, I hit the hammer down. On the carousel, I watched my throttle levels as to not overwhelm the Familial's rear tires. Can't afford the car to spin out now, can I? Once I reach the shortcut, I apply caution as this bit of the track is quite treacherous. On the shortcut's first corners, I purposefully kept the car on the third gear for a more measurable acceleration. It was only after the sixth checkpoint I ramped the aggression once more, as that was the last corner I've just dealt with. I used the entirety of the track again and slammed the gas pedal as hard as I could, utilizing all 259 horses under the Familial's hood to beat the Lansdale's record. And would you look at that? The Familial scored a time of 1 minute and 24 seconds, roughly a second faster than the Lansdale. That means challenge number 2 was complete.
Excellent. You have passed the second challenge. However, now comes the toughest challenge of them all.
Bring it! I'll take whatever you can throw at me and then some.
You have proven your car's speed on the track. However, a multi-purpose vehicle's true purpose is to carry as many people as possible from point A to point B in one go. Therefore, a good MPV should promote safety. You are now a substitute driver for a family of 7 halfway home. They have stopped in Westleaf Island's Tyrannus Fuel for a final stop before reaching their home at Horizon Estates. Your challenge will be to drive them to their destination.
That's it? I thought this was supposed to be a challenge.
Unfortunately, the entirety of Belasco hates this family. Therefore, all of them will try and stop you. You must survive the trip.
Oh, well, surely it cannot be that hard. Oh, how naive I was. Never did I think the seemingly easy 4.5 kilometer ride will turn into this. Hey, stop! My own car is betraying me, help! No, leave me alone! What the f? Uh-oh. No! Ah! I just got out. What the hell? Help! This town is full of crazy people. Help! Not even 3 minutes into the challenge, I was already crying for help with a crumpled front bumper. Oh boy, this is going to go great. Not only that, but the car's innate understeer issue was definitely not helping, especially not in a scenario where I need to make tight turns fast. But still, that did not stop me from making brave moves, such as weaving through that massive sedan right before the hairpin. Now the only thing that could screw me at this point is if that muscle car behind me is or that guy doing that. I have to admit, that startled me, but failed to shake me. I then proceeded to hammer it down the bridge. As you can see, on this speed, none of the traffic could do anything meaningful to me and my safe minivan. As a matter of fact, this time, the car steering and my less than ideal driving was more of a threat than any of them. I was lucky that skirmish with the walls did not ruin my car's handling whatsoever. Once I reached the slight bend, I slowed down a bit, maintained my throttle on a healthy level, and began to wonder, are they even going to chase me? Oh no! Almost immediately, I was punished for my hubris. But despite all that shock and awe, I was roughly a kilometer away from my destination. Is this it? Will I really win this challenge on the first try? Well, a couple of cars did attempt to stop me. The first one failed. The second one, however... Yep, that Coffet managed to strike my left rear tire, right on the 1 kilometer mark too. Damn it! I was close, so close! But I'm only 1 kilometer away. Not giving up here! I will not yield! I yield. Well, that was that. Attempt 1 ended in failure. Attempt 2. This time I went out from the gas station just like the last time and was immediately checked by a black brockle. However, that was not checkmate yet. I reversed out, and to avoid the other 2 cars from piling me in, I went around and made my way towards the tunnel. I will show you all the example of the indomitable human. If a short rear tire won't stop me the last time, what makes you think this will stop me now? I made my way to the hairpin right towards the highway. As the car was crippled, I had to put a little bit more elbow grease into safely making my way through. Mangled tire alignment did not stop me from weaving back to the correct lane on the bridge, barely avoiding the separator. And it did not stop me from daring to reach speeds above 120 kilometers an hour. In a mangled MPV, by the way. What ultimately stopped me, however, was my overconfidence. And too fast! Yep. For my arrogance, I was swiftly converted into a cube. Moving on. I really didn't think it was going to be this difficult. On my first run, no one barely did anything. However, I needed to consider the fact that in BeamNG, one crash could mean the car losing control or outright crumple. This oversight had led to an absolute cacophony of pure insanity. He definitely does. This guy definitely does. Ow! Unlucky. Ow. I'm free! Help. Oh sh. No, 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 no. You will not. You will not arrest me like this. It'll take more than that to stop me. See you later, idiots. The usual, going across the tunnel. Careful of the crazy man in the van. Not referring to myself, obviously. Help. The cars is already in a bad condition, and I'm making it worse. Honestly, when I saw the distance, I didn't think it's gonna be this hard. It's only like 4.5 kilometers. I could clear that in a few minutes, usually, in racing games. Uh-oh. And that's death. That is just death. Well, I did try to modify my approach by going through the other exit at a fuel station, and looks like this was a good idea, as I faced less resistance going this way. And I went past the tunnel with little to no issues. Surely I could. Plus, why is it? Should be the last one, or not. At this point, you know what? You'll never take me alive, idiots! On the house, I chose through the GPS. You know what? Well played. Actually, well played. This time, as I went around the hairpin, I decided to play aggressively for once and took out the full door next to me. For a minute there, I thought that was a mistake, but the sedan was quickly detached from the side of my car, and so I could continue safely. With the cop car holding everyone up, I was able to enter the tunnel with little to no problems. On the bridge, I took the oncoming lane as it was empty and prevented at least 3 cars from acting against me. I joined the correct lane on the first possible opportunity and sped down the highway. On this section, I was... Unfortunately, I did overshoot the junction again, but this time, I had a plan to turn this mistake into an opportunity. While upon exit, My run was almost ended by a rabid driver that thought my left tire was spinning in an offensive manner. I finally reached the point where my first run was stopped, but this time, I made my way through the straights in a much cleaner state. Unfortunately, disaster struck as I made my way uphill. Honestly, this is quite a good time. No, I was so close. Okay, it is getting a wee bit more damage than before, but I still can make it. I will not stop. This but scratch. You will not stop me like this. Despite that horrendous crash, which had left my car grievously injured, I was very close towards my destination. I cannot give up here. I will drag this mangled vehicle whenever this family likes it or not. I am 500 meters away. You cannot do this. Come on. Come on, wiggle yourself free. Oh God, the entire town's coming. I will not be stopped. I refuse to be stopped. In the housing complex, I drifted my car throughout the street, only to find the last 30 meters of the challenge was sealed off by a fence. This fence, which I had apparently failed to take into account while designing the challenge, had practically made winning this challenge impossible. While technically I should be able to be declared a winner from the challenge as I went further beyond and circled the entirety of the block, well, almost all of it anyway. You cannot stop me! What makes you think? Who do you think you are? Technically I won. Alright, you know what? One more try for good time's sake. So, I decided to change the destination just a tiny bit. This time, it's the driveway of the house before the first one. Completely accessible, a valid destination for the challenge. Once the challenge had started, I left the gas station through the exit on my right, complete with a flick. Stayed on my lane throughout the brief tunnel. It was not long until I met my first adversary. The massive sedan before me was biding its time to strike when I was most vulnerable. In response, I weaved around. The black rockle took the wrong direction, leaving me to enter the highway unharmed. On the hairpin before the highway, I made my own lane to overtake these two. You would think they'll swerve onto me while I'm doing this, as they're set to take me down. But they refused to do it. It looked like nothing good. That was close. That was close. Holy. Like most of the attempts before, the oncoming lane was empty, and the separator prevented the cars from the other lane from attacking. However, the cars on the bridge were not the problem. No! Holy shit. It was a close call. On South Belasco, all was well until I saw quite the commotion. That's when my encounter with the black sedan on West Leaf Island inspired me. I went slow, whiffed a bit to better predict the movements of my detractors. The police drove straight onto two innocent citizens, proving this was the right move. The citizens of Belasco, however, was not about to give up. They formed a last stand on the bridge connecting the main city towards the Horizon Estates. Once again, I narrowly escaped death in the hands of the three angry individuals clogging up a cramped bridge. I went past the final corner, and from that point on, there was only a few hundred meters between me and victory. I parked the car right on the driveway, finally finishing the challenge right. That was it. I have delivered this family from West Leaf Island's gas station back to their home in the Horizon Estates housing complex safe and sound. Along the way, their children might have developed some trauma that they will need to sort out throughout their formative years. The parents might be planning to leave the town filled with maniacs for good. But hey, I did my job. Despite this was a challenge that I made for myself, I still had fun from it, and at times, it did become actually challenging. As the Familial was made in Automation's sandbox mode, I needed some clue on what would be considered a reasonable tech pool cost. So, I dug deep in Automation challenges and adapted the tech pool cost from that. In my opinion, it helped keeping things believable. Upon its execution in BeamNG, I honestly didn't think that the final challenge would be that hard. I had severely underestimated the citizens of the West Coast. I was unstoppable on their first run, especially on the bridge where not even one car could attempt to stop me. However, I forgot that at the end of the day, the familial V6 is still an MPV, not a performance car. It was large and sluggish on the road, which turned it into quite the target for the angry citizens. Though I gotta say, some of them are utter matter of luck. Though I cannot say that luck didn't play its part on that last run, where I was unscathed all the way to the end. To me, both Automation and BeamNG combined is one of the best car games I've ever played. Automation stimulates creativity since you're in charge of designing your own cars. Once the creation process is complete, you can export that car to BeamNG. And let me tell you, driving the very car you have painstakingly designed and perfected in BeamNG is the ultimate reward. I wonder though, will it ever be possible for Automation cars to have openable doors and hoods? But that aside, Automation made a very good move partnering with BeamNG in my opinion. It made the game feel complete. Thanks for stopping by, fellas. If you like what you see, then I got more in the store for you. Why don't you check out the time I tried to beat Gran Turismo with just blue cars? Or the time that I tried to beat Gran Turismo 4 with just Honda NSX? Or anything in my channel in general, really. I think you're gonna like them.